Greetings, LanGo Knots. This is Peter,
I'm Tyler.
and we're going to continue working on Ghanongga language. This is our second recording, so if you've caught the first one already, you'll be caught up. In any case, today we're going to do a little bit of bookkeeping. We're going to start organizing some data. Now, if you recall from last time, we were working in this program called Flex, right? And it was starting to give us some observations, what might be a verb, what might be a suffix, such as this one here. So we have started creating some materials. Now, you've already seen that we are taking text from the PDF and writing it in here. Tyler has created another document here. Tyler, why don't you tell us how this one works?
Well, it's just a transcription of that PDF. I wanted to have so that the text is easily grabbable and movable while we're working. So what you can do is you can either just copy a cell or a few cells at a time and put them in the Ghanongga text, put them in the baseline, and the translation is also ready to go. I was largely able to grab them from the PDF, but because it's an old scan and it's got a lot of waves in it, I had to do a bit of it by hand. Let's keep our eyes open for mistakes. But with this, we saw how you could do it laboriously last time. And so I thought I'll take a little bit of the tediousness out of that, have it all ready for us to go.
All right, so how did you deal with Engma in here?
I replaced it with an Engma IPA character.
Okay, so any instance of NG?
Yes.
All right, and where it actually had the...
Replace the signs. I used caps for just so they pop out. X and C were the ones that we came across.
C means contraction. X for us means there's like a dash there.
There was a dash, which Flex at this stage, we don't know how to make it handle that the way we want, so we're just replacing it. Now, those were the only two special marks that I came across. So I think with X and C will be good for this text at least. There, the paragraph numbering, let me just mention, if you scroll down a little bit past page 4, there'll be two numbers. The first will be the paragraph on that page. So the first paragraph on that page, but then in brackets, that's the total paragraph number, the global number.
I see.
I suspect we'll have that one in the Flex project. If we keep the ordering there consistent.
This will help us keep the format nice.
Yeah, really, especially with longer text. This is pretty long, the ones I've dealt with. You really want to be able to find where you got something from quickly for reference. With a file like this, it's easy to do a Control F operation to find a specific string of letters, but really recommend keeping clear track of everything when you work on these things.
That's right. So the reason that we are using like the capital X and the capital C and stuff is so that we don't lose information in case we need to get into it later. And of course, if you were trying to work on a project using computer programming, it is useful to have a specific character like that so that you could easily write a script to interpret that the way that you want to as your analysis changes. All right, so we've started having some phonological observations and guesses here.
Well, while we're talking, do you want to maybe input a little bit more of the text in Flex so we're not just static?
Yeah, what I was thinking is I would start another doc in our shared folder here for phonological observations. And I'm going to start a new folder, and it's going to be called Ghanongga Grammar. And of course, we won't know everything about the grammar quickly, or maybe ever. You don't know. But I thought this would be an interesting thing to show when we don't know very much what kind of things we expect to look for. And I know that when I was a PhD student and even a master's student, I was very curious. And how do you write a reference grammar? When you find a good one, I've got 100 on the, not 100, but probably at least 50 here in my office. I'm looking around at them, and they're very authoritative. And how do they come to the conclusion of how to slice up what? So I'm going to show a little bit about how I do it, and I think maybe Tyler doesn't necessarily do it the same way. I don't know, but he will have similar thoughts and useful thoughts in the case of Ghanongga and how we should slice things up. So how I typically do it is I create a folder for
Done.
each section of the grammar, and then inside that I have multiple documents. So the first one I'm going to call introduction, and I label it 1 so that it will appear first the same way it would appear in the grammar. I'm not even going to put anything in this folder, but it would contain, obviously, background information on the language, methodology. Hey, we got it from this book, and other things like that. What we're particularly interested in today is, what I would put second is phonology.
What is phonology?
So phonology is the system of sounds. Phonology is the study of sound systems. And if you are new to linguistics or you're uninitiated, you might not realize that sound systems in human languages there is a physical side to it. You can measure frequencies. You can create this thing called a spectrogram, and you can physically measure things, the acoustics of it. But sound systems in human languages, that's called the phonetic study. They also have this phonological side, which has more to do with the psychological side. And you may not have thought about it, but T in English is pronounced different ways depending on what environment it's in, like where it is in the word or a syllable. But we resolve it all. What's that?
Yeah, what dialect of English you speak, very important.
Right. But you would resolve it all as the same representation in your mind. This mental representation we call a phoneme. So in our phonology section, I would start creating little documents. So I'd call the first one, say, create and share, yes. The first one's going to be, say, 2.1 phonemic inventory or whatever. In this case, we're going to call it phonology. And we're not even going to actually do 2.1 yet. We can always add that later. I'm going to call it phonological observations. And this is going to be somewhat unstructured because we're just going to put things in here as we notice them. And a lot of them are going to be hypotheses, meaning we don't know if that's true yet or not, but I'm going to write it down so we can test it. Right.
Let me show briefly an example of the kind of stuff we do. A little blurry there. But I was sitting down with these data, the data being just this one text. I wanted to know which consonants occurred with which vowels. They're not distributed at random. So down the left side of this chart, which you cannot see, are all the consonants. And up at the top, the 5 vowels. In this language, we don't seem to have codas. We don't seem to have consonants at the end of a syllable. So it's real easy to map out every possibility on a single page. There's still a few gaps. So I'm going to keep my eyes open for the things that I haven't found yet. For instance, with the letter M, consonant M, we have me and ma and mo and mu, but so far no meh. I want to know, has there been some recent change that would have gotten rid of meh somehow? That's the kind of stuff I look out for. Maybe not. I could be chasing nothing, but I need to know.
Yeah,
so I put in this doc.
This is actually the perfect kind of example. And one of the things is I have studied a related language, Robiana. That doesn't necessarily, they clearly have different phonemic inventories and different grammars, but you'll have like an intuition. Oh, it should be this way or that way. But even my intuitions need to be questioned here. And this sort of organization can be very valuable. All right, let's work a little bit on our flex file here.
Yeah, if you'll go to the baseline. Okay. Let's see where we left off. To Livona, last bit. Koena, mai tangu koena. Mai tangu koena.
So the last thing we were talking about was he gave him the whole claw and he ate the whole claw, the giant, and he gave him the leg and the body and the shell and everything.
My picky.
So our last sentence here is Tumuzuna, and it will tell us paragraph 2. So that should be the last one. So paragraph 3. So I can start pasting these in.
Now you've got an empty paragraph there. You want to get rid of that. Inflex, yeah, because it will number it, and that's just, yeah. So what you can do, you could actually grab multiple cells at a time if you like. I wouldn't grab too many, but just
I'm
grab
just
three
going to grab one paragraph at a time.
as you wish. Now you're just able to Control C, Control V. Real simple. We won't be able to do it the same with the English. That'll have to go line by line the way it appears. That depends on the punctuation. Yeah, you can grab quite a bit at a time.
Making sure it's all in the same paragraph
That's
now. But since Tyler has numbered the paragraphs there, it's very easy to know. And then this will go a little bit faster than comparing it with the original PDF, which is also very good.
Now, go ahead and input the free translations there, column D. You'll just go for this. I recommend gloss because you get more on at a single view. That maetangu. Oh wait, yeah. Give me the body, and then
That
it's
was the
azai.
last thing they said.
Yep.
Yeah. So
This is no original work we've done yet. We've just taken the text as we found it and transcribed it.
and we're going to use this paragraph and every paragraph for the rest of the book to try to learn more words.
That's right. We want to find words, and we want to go further. We want to see what's inside the words. How are the actual words put together? I'm very interested, and I know Peter is too, in how the phrases are structured.
Yes.
Build up a sentence. Well, we'll see all that as we go. But one thing to think about is what order are subject, verb, and object going to go in? What orders? Maybe it's not a single one. Maybe we'll find multiple. So that's right. These little things. And 3.5 there, Zagwa, that's he said. It's not always going to align perfectly.
Yeah, I'm going to fix that
But
right
here,
quick.
since we're adding to something that's not in the original, what I like to do for that, many people do, is use square brackets on it to show that we've added something. We're pretty sure what Zagwa means. We see it a bunch.
Yeah, Zagwa kind of means he said. So when we
always want to be clear about what you added.
That's right. So here we have this lone Zagwa, and in square brackets, we're going to say something like he said.
Yeah.
Because we know that we put this in.
Exactly.
And
this want to distort the picture of what you're working on. You want to be clear about what you've added to it.
That's right. And so it's a little bit different than what was in the original English translation, although it's still pretty easy to understand where we are. In fact, this whole resource is pretty amazing, in my opinion. And there's many stories in this book. This is literally just the first one. Since last week when we were working on this together, if you watched last week's video, then you know. Tyler and I have found out that there is a way to buy the other book in the series. So this book is actually a kind of a second storybook from Ghanongga. And there's a first one. I bought this second storybook in Solomon Islands when I was there on fieldwork for Robiana. I bought it at the National Museum, but I didn't see the other book. I would have bought, of course, I would have bought it. So it was hard to find. This book was pretty. I wish I'd had the original price tag still on there, but it must have faded off. It was a couple dollars US maximum. The other book is a bit more expensive, so we're gonna have to probably wait to get that one. But we've got so many stories to work through.
That's right. We got stuff to work on in the meantime. Questions to formulate. So let's to quickly review. I've been here and there. I've been looking more at this text outside of Flex. I could put it into my Flex, but I wanted to see what I could glean just looking at it with my eyeballs. Scroll back up to the top. I've identified a few more words and word parts.
Okay.
So, Ka is probably an article there. Rane in 1-3. Rane makarane.
What is rane?
That's going to be the word for day.
100%.
I found it, and it's there in a few other sentences later on. And so we have it twice in this. It could be day one, that day. And one thing that Peter and I have realized is that little pointing words or articles, something like that, they tend to fuse onto the nouns. So we'll see that.
This is where the contraction we're seeing. So you said day one.
Day one.
Maka means one?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe Maka is one.
All right, I like that because then that gives us there was a giant.
There we go.
Now, the listener may not realize the origin of an in English, right? This is what they would call like a semantic universal tendency or something. An indefinite article, if it exists, it's not strange for it to come from the number one.
Right.
So Maka, my guess is one as well. It's not one in Roviana, but I would guess that it's one here.
We have good evidence in these two senses.
Okay, and Ka, do you have a guess on this yet?
That's got it. Well, I've been studying Hawaiian a bit, and it's a definite article in Hawaiian.
So I don't think it's a definite article here, but I do think it's an article.
It's something introducing a noun phrase, probably. Well, the ari, actually, the plural part is belonging to that noun there too. Ka. I don't have a good guess.
Ari is down here too. Ka seems to be optional here, as they have it in sentence, not sentence 3. I do have a guess myself, but I'll leave it to your.
All right. Since Peter's more since Peter's more experienced with this family, he's going to be the wiser elder on this. So we're training me to recognize these things.
Well, that said, Tyler has a penchant for noticing things that other people don't notice. And particularly, I've been working in these languages for long enough that I see things a certain way, and sometimes I'm wrong. I can't see the ships on the water or whatever it is. So I have a suspicion here with Ka, but it's far from a certain thing. And I will tell you, there's a bunch of things about this language, not just words I don't recognize. There's not that much words in common with Roviana.
Okay.
Rane is, but Rane is a loan word in Roviana. I can use sound correspondences to show that even though it's definitely an Austronesian word, it's not from Roviana. I bet it's not from Ghanongga either. In the past, there were certain dominant groups that spread religious words or something like this. So
let's look at
what's that?
I was going to say, let's go to 1-4. That paro paroho is one that we're
starting to have a guess there, at least what parogo means.
For the word itself, it's going to be the open fire.
All right, so how do we want to break this down?
Well, that'll be in the Analyze tab if you want to go over there. So let's go ahead and do the word gloss. Let's say open fire here. And then in Flex, you can sort of zoom in a little bit closer. Just click up above on Analyze. And it gives you more rows where you can do more stuff. So I have thought about one analysis. First, we got to talk about echo vowels, I guess. So if you look at 1-5, we have omanga. One thing that Peter has observed elsewhere, I believe, and then I noticed here, was that if your word has 3 syllables and it doesn't have an article or something fused onto it, if it's a 3-syllable word, it seems that always that final vowel echoes the vowel that's right before it, which sort of suggests it's not an independent vowel. It's copied. So we can analyze a word like omanga as really consisting of just omang. There's a rule that says you can't end your word in a consonant. You need a vowel to make it pronounceable, just copy the last vowel. And then in 1-6, paranga, very likely the same thing. It's really parang.
Well, that's one way to look at it, but it is also, and I, of course, in my writings on Roviana phonology, I talk about the echo vowel. And by the way, the reason we might say this is an echo vowel, we get down here, parogia. So we get paro parogo, parogo, and then parogia. So we've started to have a guess that gia is an ending. This ia is as its own suffix, right? And we have a kind of a guess what it means based on we see it here in Tutia, other places. So we're starting to get this ia is a verb ending.
Yep.
But we actually haven't heard these words out loud, but we're saying omanga. Well, I bet they do say omanga. That is penultimate stress in Austronesian. If it is an echo vowel, now we have to get into some phonology. If it is an echo vowel, we assume that it's inserted to satisfy surface conditions or whatever. Then it oftentimes this kind of phenomenon, like an echo vowel, will not be considered part of the stress assignment. So if omang was the root, we would expect the stress to be omang, right? Omanga. That is what we should predict. Yet we're saying it omanga. And I bet that it is said that way because the echo vowel may not be, I don't know if it's active. Maybe that was active 1,000 years ago. I don't know if that's active today or not, and whether that's part of the stress calculus or not. another possibility is that omanga is a root and omangia is or parogo is a root and parogia is another root, and that's
Could
okay.
be. That's right. But we want to find the simplest description, positing the fewest distinct words and the fewest distinct roots. The meanings align well. Whenever we see that parogia, it's a verb meaning to cook, probably to cook over an open fire, at least at one stage. And parogo is always used as a noun. So what to do with paro? Let's go back to that one, whatever line it was. I think it was up a little bit. Parogo. What I proposed was that it's really just parog, that is the root, and for this noun, it's just repeated. Parog, parog. You get the final O by the vowel copying rule, and one of the G's there, or R, is just deleted. But there's other possibilities.
I have to insert another possibility in this one. A manuscript which I'm working on revisions for. It's taken forever. I am writing about this exact problem in Roviana, the reduplication problem. And at this time, in a similar storybook in Roviana, they also wrote reduplication as CVCV. Now, what are we talking about here?
That, by the way, that for those who don't know, C consonant, V vowel.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to write here. We have parogo. This is our phonology notes. And then we
I don't think we find that specific form. It's parogo or parogia that are throughout the text. Let me just check. So now that I've input it in that spreadsheet, I can easily just do a search for that string of letters. I have a reduplicated one, parogo, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Yeah, all times that we have those 6 letters, it's in the reduplicated one. So either put an asterisk before. Here's a place too where we need to be real careful that we're not just inventing stuff. Otherwise, yeah, that is not attested. It's hypothesized, is what the asterisk tells us. Not observed in that form. But those 2 below it, those are what we observe.
So, what I want to say here was a note about the reduplication. If we assume that parogo is the root, or even if we assume parog is the root, but I am hesitant for now to propose that there is an underlying form that we never see in the surface. So again, agnostic on this, but just writing parogo because we see parogo and parogia, etc. So what we're saying the reduplication would be I'm putting a dash there and a dash here. Here are the things that would be let me make this bigger so it's very clear.
Yeah, make it a little bigger. And can you, instead of a dash in the middle one, you do the swung dash, the little tilde looking one. Yeah, that's one way to mark that it's reduplication. It's a little different from stem and suffix, different process. Now
I don't know about that. I'm agnostic on that too.
Okay, it could also be morphemes. This is right. Writing's getting theoretical. We're just looking at 2 words.
A lot of ways to look at it. I actually look at this sort of reduplication as a prefix. And if it was the Iligani, it'd be a suffix.
Right. But it's different from the standard idea of a prefix. A prefix, like in English, say English re, meaning do something again, that has a fixed form. I mean, fixed but variable. It has info in it. It has an R at the start, and it has some high vowel or non-low vowel following it. But this reduplication, it may carry the grammatical information of a prefix, but it has no inherent form. It just takes the form from what's there.
That's one theory of phonology. Actually, there's a lot of ways to look at this. Although I like this convention and we're going to use it going forward. I think that we'll eventually come to the conclusion that ia is a clitic, by the way, maybe not a suffix, but we don't need to make that distinction yet. My point here is mostly to show the morpheme boundaries. And so what it looks like.
Morpheme being a meaningful part of a word, whatever the status.
Right. So the meaningful part of the word for us is as such, paro and then parogo and then parog and ia. Those are the meaningful parts of the word. So you might be, by the way, you might be watching this video and you speak a language which is little described and you want to replicate what we're doing. You are our ideal audience. We want to tell you everything. Maybe you're a linguist and think this is fun. We're going to start putting these videos up. Obviously, you can't know that now, the way time travel works and stuff. When you see this video, please leave us comments with questions. Say, wait, you got to this part, I was totally lost. Or in my language, they do this. Or is there a language that does X? Ask us. we want to talk to you about it. Back to this reduplication problem. We can represent the consonants with capital C and the vowels with capital V. Now it looks like we're getting this sort of reduplication, right? So I'm going to just use the dash just for structural reasons. And then we might think that the V here is...
but you need another consonant. Yeah, you see.
We might think this final V is an echo vowel, so I'm putting it in parentheses right there. And you might be thinking, all right, it looks like this. Well, it is written this way in Roviana in a similar storybook at the time, but my research into reduplication in Roviana shows that there are two real shapes, meaning what people actually say out loud, which is CVC and CV. In Roviana, it looks like CVC is the default reduplicant, and now we get a situation where we would never normally get, where one consonant touches another at the beginning.
That seems to be right. I was going to mention that consonants in context seems to be prohibited in Ghanongga, although we have one instance in the spelling where that happens, which we will talk about when we get to it.
Yes, so this would give us a clue also on our contractions, which we're marking with capital C in our baseline, not to be confused with consonant, which we're marking here in our phonology notes. So why we're getting Niligani, well, Iligani begins with a vowel. This probably will not happen with a root that begins with a consonant. That's Peter's prediction number 1. And this is the reason why. So in Roviana, it's if there's this one weird situation where two consonants can touch, except certain sequences are prohibited. Right now, we can be a bit agnostic on how it works in Ghanongga, and this is what we're seeing so far as CVC or CVCV as the reduplicant shape. And I suspect that it was written that way in Roviana because historically it was that way. So it might still be this way in Ghanongga, and for now we're going to treat it like it is. But if we start seeing CV reduplication all of a sudden, then we have a good guess as to why and what's really going on. So what we would propose as the underlying form,
right,
what's in slash brackets here, is parog, right? And we assume this O is on the surface because you cannot have a word ending in a consonant or even a syllable ending in a consonant. Which
now,
also,
when I first looked at that word, I thought that go was a suffix, go or go, but I've changed my mind on that.
Based on the evidence. All right, now Tyler has also pointed out we do get what looks like a palatal nasal here in this NY.
In the text, yeah, not in that. Well, let's go back to flex there real quick for that. Nyango there, 1-8. Mana yango tutiako mana. Now, ngeru, I want to check if that's right. There are some little spelling errors. Sometimes
so this is the one from the first paragraph that we knew it actually was a little mistake. So we're gonna have to check.
Right. There's materials in the original. There's errors in, likely to be errors in the original text too, because it's made by humans, we suppose, and humans make mistakes. So if we get real good with our analysis, we might be able to find typos in a language that we don't speak.
That's one of my favorite Bob Lust anecdotes, is that he passed away sadly, but
Peter's professor.
He was one of my teachers, and he was pretty good at reading your paper and spotting typos in the language you're writing about. He would notice an amazing level of detail, true genius level mind, and he would read all your example sentences and put together observations and be like, oh, you must have made a typo here. And I won't say he ever suggested there was a typo in a language I was working on and he was wrong. Never happened. He's pretty good at it. So if you are careful enough and as smart as Bob, then you could potentially spot typos too. Tyler's giving it a run for the money, I guess. All right, so we're going to end our meeting in 10 minutes, by the way.
Good to know.
Got 9 minutes left. Let's look and see if we can discover any words. And then next time we meet, let's put together a phonemic inventory, or our hypothesis of a phonemic inventory. And that might be very useful for the listener or watcher.
Yeah. All
right, let's start with this paragraph 2. So we've got Razavoku.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Niligani. Does it matter that the C here in Niligani is lowercase where it's uppercase here.
What I was thinking as I was working on this the past week, if it's uppercase, it'll pop out to us, which is what I wanted. We're gonna
Right, so
know
I
it's.
should change this one to uppercase.
Let's do that, and let's run it all together. I think that's how it's intended. In the actual text, it's N apostrophe iligani all together. So we want to capture that.
So we're going to call this the giant for now.
That's right. That N there at the beginning, N or Na, it's all over the place. And it's going to be comparable to the word the in English, somewhat. And it seems to be just free variation, whether you contract it like here or whether you have it as a separate word. It's natural, though, when you have a sequence of vowels like that, Na, Ili.
So we've got Na there with Gengu too. So Na seems to be doing something. Right. There we have Nari.
Right.
There we have Naza. These are things we're going to want to look at and think about as we go through.
Let's Leai. Can you go to 1.5? That word Leai with the X in it. Go to the baseline. Make that a capital X, please. Same logic. And that one occurs. That word form occurs later on in the text too. So it's highlighted there in black, and just
I just had to fix it while I saw it.
Top line there near the right. Top line in the baseline. There it is. LEA capital X. What we have in the original is a dash, and that's not going to do what we want it to do. All right.
We don't know what that adapt the X2 once we know what it's doing.
That's right. Easy enough to replace.
Because it could have been like how English writers would use an M dash, like I'm interjecting something here, or it could be indicating a connection, a grammatical connection between two words. Since we don't know,
could represent a sound.
All right, that C needs to also be fixed.
Good.
1.6.
So yeah, the numbers don't show up here then, but
we want those to actually be touching.
What you want to do, if you're going to the baseline, a good way to do it is just select that word in whatever view.
Oh, right.
Then click to the baseline, it'll be highlighted, so you won't have to search for it.
Right, it is highlighted now.
Yeah, Naza Zomanga, so it seems to be double there. Gosh, that smell. I think Naza is going to also mean what in some cases. But we were wanting to.
I do think it's what. I 100% think it's what.
What's what?
Direct reflex of Proto-Oceanic what. So
did it have a Nasa? Would it be Nada or Nata?
Nasa.
Oh,
there's some weird SZ thing going on in Ghanongga, and we've already seen it because we got body to Musu.
That's right, in two forms.
Two forms.
Tumuzuna in the single sentence, actually.
Yeah, there it is. Tumusuna, Tumuzuna.
Let's go ahead and break that down. Yeah, let's add a bit to that.
There's something going on there.
Yeah,
click and analyze actually.
Now you have to. Okay, you can search for it again. I really recommend if you want to focus on a word, click it and flex. It's going to save you a lot of time.
What should have been the last word of the paragraph?
It's the last word of paragraph 2.
Oh, I see what happened. Yep.
Right.
I was in the wrong.
If you just click the word. Minutes and minutes.
We've got body now, anyways.
2.9.
So what we're going to do first, or what I would do first, is propose that na is a suffix, as we already have good evidence that it is.
Something like that. Yeah, maybe an enclitic.
Yeah, it could be an enclitic. We can easily change.
That's right.
The difference between suffix and enclitic is largely where it attaches to. They phonologically work the same, except that a suffix must attach to a root, and a clitic attaches to a whole phrase. And we'll kind of deal with that later, but that's why the distinction is not that important at this stage, is we don't even know what a phrase is yet.
Right, so that tumuzu or tumusu in two different forms, that could be meaningful or it could just be variation, meaningless variation.
I propose that it's meaningless variation based on the fact that we have it right there in the same sentences.
Well, I mean, you got to look, is it an object or a subject? That kind of stuff. Is it a direct object or an indirect object? That's the kind of, in some languages,
it's an object.
Distinction can mark it is, but is it the same kind of object?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
there could be things going on with those little features, is what I want to say. We don't want to just blithely assume it's meaningless when it could be hiding.
I agree. So for now, we can leave it agnostic, but if we start to notice the pattern is more widespread, what we would do is we'd create an entry. I'm on the wrong thing now. We'd create an entry for one of them, say create new entry, and then for the other one, we'd put allomorph of or variant of, depending on what we think it is. So Flex can still recognize both of them as being the same word. Let's see if we can learn any other words. Now we know tumuzu means body.
Let's go ahead and let's create it. Or do you not want to for some?
I do want to.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to say is the underlying form?
I would go with S because Z is more frequent. S is rare in the text from what I've seen. So I'm going to posit that S will neutralize with Z maybe. Not Bozy, but body. Let's call it a noun.
Yeah, let's call it a noun. And this will give us a chance to show how you make the variant. I'm going to call this a variant rather than an allomorph.
Yeah, I like that.
If we decide that it's conditioned by something like object status or whatever, then we would propose it's an allomorph. Variant of.
If you want to do this kind of work, dear viewer, it's good to take a linguistic class or two so that you learn these terms. They may seem really daunting now, but it's pretty simple stuff.
I also think that if you watch this entire series of videos, you'll learn the words from use. You'll learn it from context. But also, please leave a comment with any word that we've said so far that you don't understand.
If you can spell it, leave the timestamp where we said it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do this for koena as well.
Yep, exactly.
Sure, this is how it's working.
Looking kind of similar.
This time,
spell that.
We're going to call the whole thing shell.
Well, for the word level, I would go ahead and say it's the shell. The not seems to be working like an article. By the way, I thought of the cases, I believe I mentioned last week, where you'll have an article or some pointing word on either side. Irish does that, modern Irish, which initial word order.
We're going to call this one shell. And what I want the viewer to see is that as soon as I kind of move on from this word, it automatically suggests it in the next one.
It's real quick.
If I click on it, I can approve all throughout. I'm just going to approve this one for now. And now we have 2. So this is where Flex starts really helping you out, as it starts suggesting things. Now, all these Ghanis are capital. That just happens to be.
Right.
It actually does recognize it, I believe, from earlier when it was.
Yes, but here's something you can do, which I learned relatively late in my working with Flex. Go to one of those there you have 1 and 2, 9. At the morpheme level, replace the capital. You don't have to change the baseline, but at the morpheme level, just put a lowercase g there. And go outside the word and in that same line. I mean, no, you got to improve it. You have to make it recognize it. So replace the g and then do a left click with your cursor. Just go over 1 space to the left. There you go. Now hit spacebar.
Oh, that automatically approves it?
Try it. No, it doesn't approve it, but it nudges it to recognize it. So
it worked.
That's a start. And then we want to tie it to the Ghani that we've identified. So click the third, the third little click, not the second. Oh, variant of.
What I want to do is actually go to the lexicon, and I'm going to change Ghani.
Oh, that's right. That's what's going on. Yeah. There you need to change it. Right.
Lowercase, and I'm going to put that the uppercase version is the variant.
You don't even, okay, you can. You don't really even need to if you just replace it in the baseline.
All right, well, so we've got 30 seconds left till our meeting runs out of time. So this is going to be it for today's recording.
Alas.
But we're going to keep recording and keep moving forward. And please shoot us your questions. Even contact us via email with direct questions about the language you're working on. All right. I bid you adieu, good listener.